Gospel Tangents is supported by users like you. Please support us at gospeltangents.com or on Patreon. We are here. All right. Welcome, everybody, to Gospel Tangents and LDS Faith Journeys. We're doing a YouTube and Facebook Live right now. And so just want to welcome everybody out. As you file on in here, go ahead and leave us a comment. We'd love to know where you're watching from, YouTube, Facebook, even LinkedIn. I should give away a free book to somebody who watches from LinkedIn. I don't think I've had anybody from LinkedIn comment, so check us out there if you want. So anyway, today I'm excited. Two things we're going to do. We're going to be giving away this copy of Game Changers right here, and to a lucky listener. And then we're going to talk about faith crisis or trust crisis. And so I thought, several months ago, I gave a priesthood lesson on faith crisis and trust crisis. In fact, I think I might as well just go into it, and then you guys can follow along. So, my first interview with Kurt Franken, I think he didn't like faith crisis. And I've just been reading a new book by Jeff Strong. He's kind of been doing the podcast rounds, about halfway through, I think. And he talked about a trust crisis. And I've heard this a few times. Maybe we should reframe it. Instead of faith crisis, we should reframe it as a trust crisis. And, and in Jeff's book, one of the things, it's written for members who are valiant in the faith, trying to understand people who have stepped away. One of the things that I think we've all seen is, I remember asking this question, how many have family members who've gone inactive after COVID? So I have some family members that have done that. And I think almost all of us have. One of the interesting statistics in Jeff's book, I really need to dig into it a little bit more, is he said that 40%, trying to see if I can phrase this right, 40% of active members have gone inactive or something to that effect, which seems really high to me. Maybe that's right. And I'm trying to make sure I understand that, because I think that's a very different number than Jana Riess and what's her co-author's name? In the Mormons, that study that she did a few years ago. Because one of the things that she said, Jana did a statistically reliable study that said that most people left the church just because, maybe they married a spouse that wasn't a member. They weren't super interested. And that was the largest group of people. And in the Jeff study, he said that the largest group of people in his study left the church or quit being active due to church history, which really surprised me, because I have to tell you, when I start talking about church history and priesthood, people kind of gloss over. And so I was really surprised. I think on the internet, you will hear a lot of people about, I lost my testimony over church history and polygamy and racism or whatever. But I question how reliable that is. I think Jana's numbers are a little bit more reliable, but I think Jeff was purposely studying disaffections. So maybe that's true among disaffected people, although I still think it was lower in Jana's book. And so anyway, this is a little slideshow that I put together. I'm not going to play this video, but Elder Clinton Cook gave a conference talk about a year ago on hastening his work. And Marlin Jensen, back in November 11th, 2011, made some real waves when he said, top church leaders realize that maybe since Kirtland, we've never had a period of I'll call it apostasy, like we're having right now, largely over these issues. And Marlin Jensen, one of my favorite general authorities, he's emeritus now. He's retired, and I actually met him at the Mormon History Association probably right after this quote. I think it was probably 2012. You will not meet a nicer person than Marlin Jensen. And I know that some people jumped on top of this and were like, "Oh my gosh, the church is falling apart." And Jensen responded that critics were overstating his remarks. He said to say we are experiencing some Titanic-like wave of apostasy is inaccurate. But yeah, I do think that there has been definitely an increase in people who have at least left activity. I know a few people in my ward. I've tried to talk to a few of them. And, it's always interesting because I think they're wary of talking to me and me talking to them. And so, I don't know. But I think, disaffection, disaffiliation, that's kind of the point of this. And of course, LDS faith journeys, that's what we're all about. So Sister Annette Dennis gave a talk about cheering each other on about a year ago. She talked about the 95-year-old band that set a world record for running a race, and he talked about how everybody, like he was the slowest person in the race, finished dead last, but it was a world record because, 95 people generally don't run a lot of races. But one of the things, Jeff talks about in his book, the book is called Torn. I guess I should mention that. And like I said, I'm about halfway through. I plan to have him on soon. Some of you have probably heard him talk about it. But his goal is to get to active members. I think people in the LDS Faith Journeys crowd and even the Gospel Tangents crowd are probably aware of a lot of these. And I think it's still hard for a lot of people to know how to talk. If you're active, or maybe you're into church history like I am, or more nuanced and that sort of a thing. Sometimes it can be. I think nobody's here. Maybe it is. It says we're live. So anyway, I'm not getting anybody commenting. So if you're commenting, please let me know. But at any rate, I'm going to talk about effective conflict resolution techniques, and so I think these are some good things that we can do. So one of this is actually relationship advice, mostly for married couples, but I thought it worked really well for conflict resolution, and so I adopted some of these. And it says, creating intimacy requires sharing specific emotions and bodily sensations. Like, you'll say something like, "Oh, I feel pressure in my chest," or, "I'm sick to my stomach," or something like that. And the idea is we're trying to help our partners understand each other's inner world, which fosters empathy. Communicating only thoughts or intellectualizing situations leads to disconnection and defensiveness. I think we've all experienced that, especially when we're talking about. I'm going to start calling it a trust crisis, but in the past it's been called a faith crisis, and so. I think some of these conversations about church history and racism, I feel really comfortable in places like Mormon History Association, Sunstone, John Whitmer Historical Association. Like, that's your crowd. People understand it. But when you get into a kind of a mixed faith where one person's a super Orthodox believer and maybe you're not, or vice versa, it's important to understand. One of the things that Jeff said was people often remain silent to maintain peace, which does maintain peace for a while, but also creates conflict in a way, like a silent conflict. And so I don't want to talk too much about what I've read there, but it's important that we communicate these things. So true empathy means understanding how someone arrived at their feelings based on their unique experiences and background. it does not require agreement. And I think that's key. Just because you're listening to somebody doesn't mean you have to agree with them. Defensiveness is a trauma response. It's the fight response that severely hinders relationship progress and must be avoided. When responding to a partner, family, or friend, it is crucial to use the word "and" instead of the word "but." Using "but" can be invalidating. And so, I agree with you and I feel this way or something. And so, anyway, I thought one of the the idea behind this is to try to get some strategies on how to have tough conversations with other people. And so this is kind of a conflict resolution plan steps, and it works in many different relationships. And the rule is one partner, one complaint, one day. You could use this in relationships. You can use it in trust crisis or faith crisis. And so the idea with this rule, only one person gets to bring up a relationship problem per day. And so the rule is essential because it completely removes the capability for defensiveness and blame shifting. Okay, so basically how this works is you have a talking partner and a listening partner. Okay, the talking partner, whoever brings up the issue first becomes the talking partner, which means that the other person becomes the listening partner. So the idea is the talking partner must convey the problem or the need in non-critical language. So, you have to do this so that the church is racist or something. That's a terrible thing to say. Maybe you would say, I have a problem with the priesthood ban. That's going to come across a lot better. And so that's kind of an example. And so one of the things that we need to do is talk about how to have better thoughts. So as you're listening, a lot of times we're listening to respond, not listening to understand. And so you may have some thoughts as you respond or receiving from your partner. And so you need to ask about your own thoughts. Is your thought 100% true? It's probably not 100% true. It might be 80% true or 90% true. But think about that. Another thing to think about, is the thought productive? And along those lines, does it lead me to my goals? Okay. So if you say something, is it going to help with the relationship? Is it kind? Is it loving? So whether you're the talking partner or the receiving partner, I think it's really important to convey things in a way that is kind and that is loving. And then as you're thinking about these things, what is a respectful way to handle this? And finally, is it patient? Okay. So all of these things, I think, are things that we can do if we're the listening partner, if we're the talking partner. Let's think about this. Is it 100% true? Is it productive? Does it lead me to my goals? Is it kind? Is it loving? What's a respectful way to handle this? And is it patient? The person I was listening to said you might even want to write it down. And especially when you're learning these techniques, this could be a useful way to help you to be kind, to be loving, and to do this. So let's see. So the listening partner should remain silent while the talking partner is talking, offering only phrases that indicate listening. So we're not responding. And we want to communicate a desire to understand, such as, I hear you, I understand, and I'm listening, okay? We're not saying anything else. We're not saying, yeah, but. We would never say, yeah, but. We would say, yeah, and. So I think these are a lot of really hard things to do. So the listening partner is advised to focus on making the partner feel heard, as people will fight to the death to be understood. And for those of you who've had these conversations, especially with a family member or a good friend, you probably had these go south. And so these are some good things to work on, especially if you're feeling defensive inside and you want to say, yeah, but, can't do that. That's not the way this works. I hear you, I understand, and I'm listening. That's about all you can say, especially when you feel defensive about something like this. So immediately after the talking partner conveys their complaint, the listening partner calls an immediate timeout. Okay? The timeout duration cannot exceed 24 hours. This is for couples, but I think that's a good advice for anything. Couples should aim to eventually resolve the conflict within an hour maximum. So, like I said, this was relationship advice, but I think it really works well with a trust crisis or a faith crisis. And so we don't want this to be just like, I'm not talking about this. I don't want to talk about this. You're making me feel uncomfortable. The idea is you have to come back within 24 hours with a response. And so that helps you, number one, to regulate yourself and to get your own emotions under control without being defensive. And it also lets the person who's the talking partner to know that you're taking this seriously and that you want to come back and talk about it. So during the timeout, both partners must prioritize two actions. One is thoughtful regulation, and I mentioned this before, but this is really important. Is it kind? Is it loving? Is it respectful? Okay, those are the things that you need to be thinking about when you're thinking about responding. And so while we're doing this, we need to practice getting calm. We need to get out of our triggered state. The rational brain cannot work effectively during a trauma response. So if whatever this person said is causing you upset, we've got to get out of that defensiveness and just basically calm down. Constantly asking yourself, is it kind? Is it loving? Is it respectful? As you're thinking about your response, you might even want to write it down, especially while you're learning this kind of things. So once calm, the partners plan the response, often writing it down, as I've said before, and sticking to the script to avoid reverting to defensiveness. When planning the response, and partners should use the empathy flip. And what that means is, imagine how you would feel if the response was said to you. And so if you're saying this and then you realize if it was said to me, I would get upset. Revise it if it causes you to feel unheard or triggered. Imagine lecturing yourself, that kind of a thing. So the ultimate emphasis is on consistently fighting to understand the partner rather than fighting to be understood, okay? So a lot of times we're like, but you don't understand. If you think about it this way, then it's not so bad or whatever. And so the idea is we need to practice understanding each other rather than being understood. And so these rules must be consistently practiced over months. Okay, this is not a quick fix. And I will say this is still difficult for me. I do a really good job with talking to other people. I just had somebody say that they listened to a podcast where an evangelical and a Mormon, and the evangelical was really attacking the Mormon. And so I was like, yeah, those things drive me crazy because those are not productive. When I'm talking to people from other churches, I'm always trying to find out what's going on. How do they think? And I do a really good job with religion. Sometimes it's a lot harder to do it in relationships. And I struggle with that as well. So final tips and takeaways. Despite your best efforts, the other person still has free agency and may leave. So the idea here, this is between them and the Lord. It is not your responsibility to fix them, okay? We need to trust the atonement, and we need to keep loving them. They may or may not come back in the future, but they will remember and appreciate your ability to continue loving them. And so that's what I had there. So over at LDS Faith Journeys, just this week, we had a user named I Love Christ. And he left a message a few days ago, and he said, I've been thinking about becoming active in the church again. So I was excited to hear this. Some of my issues with the church have been addressed in posts here. There were some times I was bored going to church, and even in my small ward in the Midwest, I would hear the stereotypical reasons why people leave the church and would annoy me too much. And another is because being at church for the 2-hour block is too draining for me. Apparently, this person has autism, though it's fine if it's just the sacrament. I don't feel too bad afterwards. I'm 49 now, so I wonder if the age is affecting that part of my autism. So my question is, how can I become more active in church again without wearing myself out so much and being true to my spiritual journey? Any thoughts or suggestions? And so there's been a few of them. I see Nibbler has responded there. And I was going to respond, but I thought, I'm going to read this one on the air. So hopefully I love Christ. That's okay. So, I think we all, personally, I don't know, this is not an official church teaching here. But I think if church is stressing you out, like, take a break. Like, and I know you took a break, but as you come back in, like, do things you enjoy doing. One of the things I enjoy doing, especially like, and maybe I don't know where this person lives, but here in Utah County where I live, it's church all day, every day. And right now we're the third block, so there's not another ward that comes in after us, but the other ward that came in after us, we had split from, so I have a lot of friends in that ward. And I just enjoy hanging out in the hall and just talking to them and talking about the Steelers and whatever. I'm not a Steelers fan, but my friend is. I'm a Patriots guy. So anyway, and just talking to people in the hall, I will bring a book. Today I brought the Torn by Jeff Strong, and I was catching up on that, so I got a lot of reading done. I make it my own personal study. If Sunday school is bugging you or priesthood is bugging you, take a break. Like, just do what you want to do, and I think that's fine. Just ease into it. I also know I got a message from a friend in a Facebook group, and she said that she had a doctor's note that she shouldn't go to church because for the same reason it was stressing her out, I think a lot. And my response was, I think a lot of people self-medicate and do that themselves. So anyway, if any of you guys have any things, head on over there to ldsfaithjourneys.org into the forum, and you can give some advice. But yeah, I mean, do what you want to do. You don't make it enjoyable. Read it. Bring a book. I always bring a book that I remember bringing Blood of the Prophets about the Mountain Meadows Massacre to church, and I think a lot of people will be like, how is that spiritual? But I don't know, it was. One of the things for me, I just feel like I have to study this stuff. Like, it's just, if I couldn't study it, I would go bonkers. And so I know some people, I was talking to a youth a while back, and we were reading the Bible, and I think we were in Genesis, and this person's 800 years old and 700 years old, and he's like, really? And I'm like, no, that's not true. And he's like, what? And so we were just talking about this, and I says, just ancient people, just meant a long time. I don't think anybody lived 800 years, 700 years. No, I mean the Bible says that. And so there were things like that would come up, and I would be like, yeah, don't take it quite so literal. And they said that several times. And it got to the point where the youth was like, are you a believer? You don't believe in the Bible? And I'm like, I do, but you don't have to take everything so literally. So anyway, and then I was like, if this bothers you, maybe we shouldn't read together. So anyway, And I think the other thing, one of the hardest things, people that are probably listeners to this, like, you understand this kind of stuff. It's hard to talk to, and I just had this thought about, maybe a kid believes in the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus or something like that, and you don't want to spoil that for them. And not to say that Jesus is the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus, but, or, Genesis or whatever. But some of us have a little bit more sophisticated view. And for some who don't, the tooth fairy or whatever, that can be just really bad for them. And so it's really hard because I don't really want to force my opinions. I also don't want to sit in there and listen to these, fairy tales about the Easter Bunny or whatever at church all the time. And so that's what makes it really hard, because I think people on both sides of a trust crisis or a faith crisis can, we're not trying to hurt the other person. We genuinely want to help. And so, but sometimes the language just isn't there, or the maturity, the spiritual maturity or whatever. And so I think it's important to give grace to them, and hopefully they give grace to us. And when they don't give grace to us, that can make us really mad. I know that personally, from personal experience. And that just hurts the relationship. And so if we want to be Christ-like, we need to not only give them grace, but hopefully teach them that they need to give us grace as well. And so anyway, that's kind of my advice for that. So we'll keep this kind of short, but I'm going to be giving away this book here to a guest right now. I'm going to spin this around, and let's see here. Let me open this up and see who is the winner of this new book. And so, what does it say here? Brian Gladwell from Cache, Oklahoma. I didn't know there was a Cache, Oklahoma. You, Brian, are the winner of this book here. What's it called? Game Changers, A.J. Devonta, BYU, and the Struggle for the Soul of Basketball. So I will be getting that in the mail, so congratulations. It's a fantastic book. And Matt Bowman and Barbara Jones-Brown and Beth Reeve. Oh, one thing fell there. Thank you so much for giving me this, for giving Brian this, really. And so, fantastic book. I thought it was really fun. A lot more history in there than I expected. So anyway, I'll try to get that in the mail right away. So thanks, everyone. It was great talking to you. And I think I didn't record this live because I didn't get any comments here. I'm probably technical problem on my part. But anyway, I'm going to post this shortly. And I'm sorry I missed everybody live, but I'll be posting this shortly. And we'll see y'all later.